back to popversations. It's been a little while.
Yeah.
I'm Eve, and this is Ryan. And today we're going to talk about the new Mortal Kombat movie. We did a video before about anticipated movies that we were really excited about. This was one of them, and we just...
Well, we both watched it twice now.
Yes,
Right.
and we're super into Mortal Kombat. I mean, I don't have a Mortal Kombat logo tattoo on me or anything like that, so we just felt compelled to talk about the movie a little bit. And I think to start off, we'll just say that we didn't hate this movie. It's not the worst movie we've ever seen by a long shot.
No. I would say like if you're a fan, definitely see it. But I mean, it's one thing to just to be the type of person that says, well, what do you expect out of a movie like this? But the problem is that it could have been so much more. Like, I'm not asking for the whole entire like lore story or anything like that, but something that's like a little bit more comprehensive, and I think just has a little bit more characters with some meaning. I don't know.
I mean, there's just so much. I mean, just look at like the Deception game. Like, I mean, they had a backstory for every single character in that game, and you can just pull from that. I mean, there's comic books that they've come out with and things like that, and all this extra stuff that's just there splayed out for you. And I think my biggest issue with this one is I just don't see the need to add like a whole new character. That was like the main thing I was really concerned about when they were talking about how it was going to be before it came out.
I would say the second act in particular drags, to put it politely. I would say the first kind of opening and the last 20 minutes or so in the final act are what really carried the movie. I mean, outside of Kano, and we'll get to our thing about that.
And the strange thing about the opening is, and not to say that we haven't seen Batman's parents die or Uncle Ben die like multiple times, that we can't see it here, but I mean the web series already did this opening basically, and in my opinion they only made it a few minutes longer. It had a less of a budget, and I honestly think they did it better. I don't think the way they did it in this is so bad, but it's so fast.
I did like the way they did it in Legacy, and I understand if you don't, if you're saving Quan Chi or whatever, but from what I've always gathered is in the lore, and again, we don't want to be super fanboys here. We're not saying that you have to follow every piece of the lore, but Quan Chi makes Scorpion think that the Lin Kuei murdered the shit out of you. Like that's always been the story, and then when Scorpion becomes his little minion vengeance, and it's all for Quan Chi.
Yeah, it's basically all for a lie, which makes it a lot more interesting because their whole feud is like based on something that isn't true, and it just makes it that much more sad.
Yeah,
really.
and out of all the characters to kind of have a lineage from, I just all of a sudden Scorpion is like this humble, take care of my clan type person. It's not that it's bad, it just feels out of place. I think there's some things in this movie that it's not that they're bad, it just feels out of place. It just doesn't feel like the pieces fit together the way that they should, if that makes sense.
And there are a lot of positive things. I think some of the cast was so good. I love who they got to play Kun Lao. I think he was perfect. He just embodied that character so well.
Monks movie. Because Ludi Lin, he gets a lot of flack for his role as Liu Kang, but honestly, Liu Kang, the way he portrays him, I mean, that's kind of the way Liu Kang plays himself in the video
he's always
games.
very more soft-spoken and just kind of chill.
Well, he's wise but very mellow, and he brings it out when he needs to. I mean, I thought that he did great. You give us a Shaolin Monks movie, I'm all in. You can do whatever you want.
And I like the guy. I like the actor that plays Jax. I loved him in True Blood as Eggs, and I think that was really good. I'm not totally convinced on the girl that played Sonya, and I think her character was a little weak, and she deserved a lot more. I think her character deserved a lot more than what she got because she was just there for a lot of exposition and
and speaking of that exposition, let's let's talk about the little wall that she had going on. You know, we kind of joked a little. Like, we're not here to like crap on. We're never here to crap on movies, but let's just talk about the wall here for a second.
It was like a crazy person's like conspiracy
She looked,
wall.
yeah, she looked like she was
Years of research ruined.
She's been in this, trailer compound thing for years, and she's just been obsessed with this Mortal Kombat tournament that everyone's.
There's no. And they had like the little callback, little like reference to Kodokan and to Nightwolf, and that was really cool that they put that in there because it, you could have it be that it's got such a history and that's more like back in time, and that's a really cool idea. But at the same time, like you can't just say you did all this research and not say like where you got it from, or it's just like here's all these pictures on the wall. I don't know.
You could have it's probably overdone. Found a book that was in.
I was on a special forces mission and I saw this, and she kind of said, I think she said something like that, but it was so vague. And just speaking of her special forces stuff, it would have been so much cooler if they would have played into that more, like when she was fighting Kano and like popping up like all over her trailer and stuff, which reminded me a lot of the fight scenes from like Kill Bill and the trailer and stuff. But it would have been so cool if they could have used that more, because that's not something that a lot of the people from Outworld or even like the other guys would have expected, and it would have been like a really different thing. They could have played up on that a lot more, like the the little things like technical stuff that she knows, and it just seems like she just comes in, knows everything about everything, and it's just a little much.
Well, we can't be the people that compare it to 1995. I think the mistake that people are making is this was never going to be what we saw in 1995, like outside of the technology. And it's not what we were going to see. And I think a majority of us kind of knew that, but that's where the expectations are set. I think it was just something at the time, considering I still do think it's the greatest video game movie that they've made to date. It's really hard for people to separate from the love of that original and try and latch on to what they're doing now.
Yeah, and it's hard for me too, because I actually would just prefer to watch that. Because I can watch that over and over, because even if it's cheesy, like even if there's parts of it that don't age well, like it's still fun.
But in all fairness, all of the characters, and not just some of the characters that are in the 2021 version, but all of those characters felt like the actual Mortal Kombat fighters. As funny as Kano was, he didn't feel like Kano to a degree. And I only say that because I think my issue with it was the Arcana thing, where they have to find it's Animality 2.0.
Find your animality. Like, why do we need this again? We don't need it again.
So he finds it through rage. It's still a funny scene. But that's just the thing, when people, I think, overly defend the movie, the argument is, well, Kano made that movie. But the point is that Kano wasn't supposed to make the movie.
No, he shouldn't have made the movie, not as a minor character.
It's awesome that he had such a personality. Really, out of all the characters, to be fair, outside of like Scorpion and Cole Young, he kind of has the most arc and has the most personality on screen stuff to do. The Cabal thing is cool to see. I personally didn't like the Wisecracker thing, but it was really cool to see his moves. It was really cool to see the hook swords.
The effect of him moving, I thought that was really cool.
Because that's what he does in the game.
Yeah,
that's what I remember.
And it does look really cool. And it became, like, for a little bit, it just becomes like the Kano Cabal, hour or something. And it's
and again, give me a Kano Cabal movie. I'd be totally fine with that. Give us a Black Dragon movie.
Just spin it off.
Just spin off these movies.
But at the same time, it shouldn't have been, it shouldn't have been him carrying the movie. I mean, they made a Falcon Winter Soldier TV show, but is Falcon carrying the MCU movies? No. Is he overshadowing everybody in the movie? No.
And is the new Captain America a new Captain America that people are going to gravitate towards? Not really. So and again,
I just don't like Cole's character. I was really confused in the beginning of the movie, because I really don't think it clicked immediately that was his family.
No, I thought it was so from the trailer, and then heading into the first couple minutes of the movie, I thought that was like his sister or something, like younger sister, or like maybe a cousin or someone he's looking after, like, you know.
And you don't need him to have a family
No.
to connect that with Scorpion's family and make that emotional impact, because all you have to do is show more of Scorpion's family in maybe like a flashback in those visions he's seeing, instead of showing the same vision over and over again of just like Scorpion on fire. Show like memories of him and his family that you could have added to make that like 30 seconds in the beginning that you see his family where you're supposed to care about them have a little bit more weight to it, and then like that lineage would make more sense a little bit, because you're like, okay, he feels like that pain. And you know, I know that's like kind of deep for it or whatever, but there are things like that already
in place
in the lore and stuff, and I just think that would have been so much better, because he didn't need a family. Like, they're barely in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, his wife like does a little bit of, you know, something.
They're just kind of there.
They're just kind of there. There's something that to like say that that's the stakes for him, and it just.
And in all fairness, you know, I understand that, you know, Earth realm is Earth, but I did find it a little odd watching a Goro fight scene, basically in a garage barn or whatever that was, and not only that, but the way that Goro finally gets his Arcana, and then. So, like, he beats Goro, and then Raiden's just like, oh, well, we found it, and then, like, boops him back through.
It's strange, because and I think that it can be inferred from, like, what happens, that his armor kind of, like, absorbs the power of the hits, and then he can, like, push it back on people, but it's not super clear. And just the fact that, I think it's really strange that they only showed, like, the top part of his armor. He's wearing, like, his sweatpants for, like, the rest of the movie. And it's like, just the top? I'm very confused about that.
I don't get it.
And it's like, just punch him in the face. Like, it doesn't work on his face. Like, that's, like, my thing. It's like, what exactly is your Arcana? Like, being way OP and, like, you know, overpowered to the point where, like, nobody can even, like, touch you, basically, or hurt you at all. Like,
they are so... It just seemed, the movie reeked of desperation in the sense of the fan service was nice at times, but it felt forced. It really felt like they were trying to hammer home the fan service and then trying to set up a sequel, but just kind of rushing it in. Like, you're not saving Johnny Cage for any other reason than to get to the sequel, is how I felt about it. And, you know, you don't have him cast yet. There's a lot of names being thrown out.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, I just think that the fact that they have characters for whoever they may be, like, they have actors from that movie, you know, they're planning on making 4 of these movies, and I just think that's so, like, presumptuous at this point that there's going to be 4. I mean, I get that, you know, this movie did really well, and I'm not surprised that it did, and I know a lot of people are going to be happy with how this movie came out, and like I said, it's not a horrible movie or anything like that. It's just, it's so presumptuous to have 4, and like to have the sets and like a lot of the transitions and stuff like that be as kind of poor as they were. Like, I feel like this movie just had a lot of ambition and they didn't have the budget for it. And maybe they'll get the budget later on, but I wish they would have had it here and just, we could have started at a good point instead of like trying to build something and expect people to be on board for the rest.
You know, it had you know, moments. And the other problem, just going back to character real quick, is I just found that Shang Tsung wasn't as menacing as, you know, he's supposed to be. I know it's Shang Tsung, but he's just kind of there. Like, I don't feel like an imminent, like, threat coming from him. He's just, I don't know. It's just that's.
I mean, you could have saved him till the second one if you really wanted to.
You could
just have, like, you know, people showing up saying, like, you know, we're in service of him, and like you could have saved him as, like, you know, just have him in shadow, not even like show him as a person. That would have made it a little bit more menacing just by itself. But the scenes in Outworld are very poor looking, and just the characters that they chose, like, what was the guy's name? Reiko, that has this.
The hammer. Rico, he's basically just a.
And I think I remember him from like
Mortal Kombat 4,
Like,
I think, is his first appearance.
And it's like, he's not a favorite character. He's
not
not an
even-
exciting character. He's not that good of a character. And
I don't even really remember him being mentioned.
I don't even really remember him at all. And it's you have
a whole lot.
Yeah, you have so many other characters that you could have chose from, like Natara being in it for like 30 seconds just to be killed.
Until
I mean,
they ran out of budget for the wings.
I mean, her
They're
death.
like, oh, we gotta kill her now. She's flying around too much.
It's too much money.
This is a lot of money. Well, because they, I can't remember what they said, but the price of Goro just being on screen for like a couple of minutes was just like astronomical. So.
And I mean, her death was really cool and everything.
And the
It's just
fatalities, okay, if people want to make the fatality argument, there are some fatalities that are good. There's a lot of choreography in the fights that are good. But I just think that when you compare it to the choreography, even in Mortal Kombat Conquest, the fights between Scorpion and Sub-Zero, Mortal Kombat Legacy, I just think that they're better. It's not that they're bad here. And like I said, we're not here to deduce on the movie. It's just, I think there's better content of what we really want elsewhere. I even think that Scorpion's Revenge, the animated movie, is a better told story of Scorpion and Sub-Zero and the whole concept of what's happening there could have just been flipped to live action. Like, what's the problem? Like, why did we not need the tournament the first time around? That's the one thing that I don't.
I mean, I
understand. If people are a little burnt out on it from the games or something because they've rebooted.
And that's fine. And I like the concept at its core that, well, they're going to cheat. And they're going to try and win because they're so close to winning. And they probably cheated the whole time. And and in the original movie, he doesn't follow the rules either.
Nope.
And so I like that, that's a little different. But it seemed like all that meant was like, we're just going to fight in these same places we've been fighting in again because we don't have the budgets for more locations. And the one like other weird detail, like there's just a couple like weird things about this movie that just get to me, and it's like in the beginning, when he's Scorpion's fighting, he's like killing all these guys and stuff. It's just especially when you're watching it at home, I don't know if it was as clear when you're watching it in the theater, but it's so much CGI blood that they just added in, and it's so clearly computerized, and it's almost like they made it without it, and they were like, no, we gotta get to that R rating, and let's just add a bunch more blood into it, and that just kind of goes against like the whole spirit of the games to me, because this was the first video game to show blood, and if you're gonna do it like that, oh man, come on, like, if you're just gonna like put in some little squirts here and there of like CGI stuff, and then just the fact that you lost your phone. Just the fact that the only thing in English that Scorpion says is "get over here," and he's talking in Japanese the entire movie, and that's the one thing that he knows. It just doesn't make sense because in the web series, he just says it in Japanese. It's like, just do that. And I get, because that's a fan service thing that's like very clear in your face. It's like, he's doing this the whole time.
That's kind of
they're talking still like in their respective languages together because that's their only reference, and it's not like he knows popular culture. I don't know like why you need to do stuff like that. Like, and it's little things like that just kind of bug me because, it's just so much easier to put in those like practical effects or just keep it with the continuity and stuff like that. And you don't have to do it just to make people like happy, because I could respect the movie a lot more if it was, didn't have as much of the fan service, but it was doing its own thing.
Well, that's an example of, I think, the fan service being forced. It was just like, they had to get him saying it in English, and from the trailer, that's the only thing that you hear Scorpion say. So you're like, oh, well, it's just gonna be, maybe speaking some English, some English the whole entire time. But I really felt like I did like the whole aspect of Scorpion's from a completely different clan, so he doesn't understand. Scorpions.
It was a little confusing at first, but
it makes sense. I liked that. That was cool. And it was just kind of funny that when Sub-Zero's armor gets taken off, it's nothing but like the black ninja suit, and we're just like, oh, here we go with the new Cybot setup. Like, and you know what, and people are gonna rip me for saying that, but like, I just mean like, it's one of those moments where you're watching it and you're just like, I know where this is going. So for him to show up in the second movie, I'm gonna be shocked. When I see.
Well, I was confused about his armor in the first place because when you first see him on screen, I thought he was Scorpion because it's just not very clear.
No, I was
he was so dark.
When he was first walking up to Shang Tsung, I'm like, who the heck is this guy? And then it doesn't he clearly he was always able to have his abilities or whatever, but his transition into Sub-Zero, it just boosts.
This is what I'm called now.
Yeah, and I have been for the last couple of centuries. I'm just saying that, you chose Rico, you chose Natara, you chose Kabal, and like I said, cool. But there wasn't anybody significant on Shang Tsung's side other than arguably Melina.
I mean, just Sub-Zero, really.
And Sub-Zero.
Because they're not, it's not that you can't take a minor character and do more with them, but you can't just take a minor character and expect me to be on board. It's you have to do more. You have to see, they have to be justified on why they're in this movie. And Natara's justification for being in this movie was to die. Yeah. And that was literally it. Literally and to be attractive. And yes. that was her only goal. And then bye movie, and then she's not in it anymore. And I just there's so many other characters. I mean, Katana could have been in this movie still.
They teased the fans. You saw the fans. You saw the amulet that's in the games that Raiden used that was crap.
And I almost wonder if they have a certain timeline that they're going to, because Kodokan seemed to be in the past. So I don't know if there's a timeline that they're using.
I think it's a mix.
That's different.
I could be wrong. If somebody knows, inform us, because we will read. But it seems to me that they're leaning way more towards the video game lore. They're etching towards what they're currently doing in the games, at least a little bit.
Than the older games.
But they're also kind of just doing something new. So it's they're adding in new with stuff that people are already kind of familiar with now.
And it's this is the one thing where I don't think you need anything new. I can respect that they are trying to do that. And this is just personally, I don't think you need anything new in this. There's so many things. You don't have to just do the Mortal Kombat, tournament again. And even if you did, you could do it a different way every time.
Oh, yeah.
And have different characters. And, there's so many options. So I just don't think in this instance, I don't want to see Batman's parents die a million times. It's but in this instance, I'm fine with them not doing something new actually, because there's so many things to pull from. It's not the same story.
It's not that I don't think that Shang Tsung is supposed to be a powerful character. We know this. We're saying that the showcase of him, look at what he's wearing. Is he gonna do fight moves in that? He's dressed like Genghis Khan. How is he supposed to fight like that? You see how much armor he had on?
It was a very fanciful robe.
Yes! A heavy robe. Something if King Agamemnon went in the bathtub and he couldn't get out of it, that's exactly what Shang Tsung was wearing.
Because the whole reason that he is involved in the fighting in the original is because he can't, and because he's the host of the whole thing. So there is that reason, but they didn't really carry that over and explain that in this movie. They didn't really explain if they're already cheating, why doesn't he just take everybody's soul then?
And just some people that want to combat that just a little bit, it's the same. It's kind of the same blowback of when people are oh, did you just want Kylo Ren, and would you expect Kylo Ren and Luke Skywalker to have a lightsaber duel? Yes. Just like I expect, Liu Kang and Shang Tsung to have some sort of a fight quarrel.
And when he had his little backstory, he could have mentioned something about Shang Tsung being in his backstory and had some sort of history there. It could have been really interesting if they would have had something like that. Maybe you see him get upset, I want to fight him, and they're no, you can't fight him yet.
I mean, shit. Remember Deadly Alliance? I mean, you killed off Liu Kang, and I was bold move, Cotton, bold move. And you know what, they kind of stuck to it because they brought Liu Kang back as a zombie. So what I'm saying going forward, like in movies, if you're going to kill off certain characters, if you want an impact, especially with like the outcome of the tournament or how characters interact with each other, like the adjustments that both sides have to make, it's okay to let characters stay dead. This is an opposite of when you wait too long and the anticipation is so high, and then it kind of just becomes this, where it's right here, it's fine. You know, if I were, on the grading scale, I would say that it's a solid C. There's nothing wrong with being a solid C. Typically, they're not movies that I would, go out and buy and, watch over and over again. If somebody had it on or something,
Yep.
I would watch it. But it just has that unfortunate, thing behind it, I think. There's almost this aura that was building to over all these years, and we just never got there. Because we got teased time and time again. It's like, ooh, it's going to come out in 05. Well, it's going to start shooting in 2009. And then it just goes back into developmental, hell, as they call it, for, I don't know, another 10 years before we get the rights. And, we'll see what happens in the sequel. I would say...
I hope that they get better. Like, I really hope that they kind of build on this and that, I do hope the other ones are better than this. And there are, like, examples of sequels of movies being better and people liking the sequels better.
You gotta go with the Shao Kahn route because the first tournament and then Shao Kahn interfering as well. At some point in the movie, I would love to see... I'm going to campaign for The Miz to play Johnny Cage. I think that The Miz is a talker, and I think he has the look. I think he can get in Johnny Cage shape, and a lot of people are clamoring for, like Keanu Reeves or somebody like that. I'm like, let The Miz go, man. I like, he's a monster on the mic, WWE. So just picture that kind of personality coming out on screen and playing Johnny Cage. I think he could fit the role pretty well. I don't know.
The opportunities are endless for just casting characters for this kind of stuff. Like, my dream would have been to see Michael J. White play Jax on screen, not just in the web series. I'm so glad he got to play him in the web series because he's just absolutely perfect. But
he does.
But I think the guy they did get was just as good. I think he has that cool man presence and stuff, and there's definitely parts of the movie that are there for people to enjoy, but at the same time, if you're disappointed, you're disappointed. If you're not, you're not. But that's just how it feels.
That's just how it feels. I don't know what else to say about it, but I mean, if anybody has any insight on what we were talking about earlier, if I was wrong on any of the lore, please correct me.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's
welcome
gonna be
correction.
more trivia coming out,
Yes.
and we'll learn more about the development of the movie as it came along, and it is one of those things where you find out in the Black Panther movie, the reason that CGI fight was so kind of a little bit more subpar than the rest of the movie is because they just did not have time to do it.
Yeah.
And they totally ran out of time. So you could find out things like that where you give the movie a little bit more of that clearance, okay, I can see why you did it this way and things like that. And if stuff like that comes out, I would, maybe my feelings about the movie would change. But as it stands, that's how
it's
okay.
It's
alright.
It's not. It's not a F for fatality bad, but I mean it's.
It could be worse.
It could be way worse. I think that's the biggest takeaway is just understand how much worse this movie could have been.
Oh man, I'm thinking about that. That's a whole other video.
Well, I mean, and the bar wasn't set very high. All you had to do was not be Annihilation, and it wasn't Annihilation.
Oh, that's very true.
So
I mean, bar was set very low.
You guys can let us know what you think, but that's just my take on it.
Everybody should take that advice in life. Just don't be as bad. Don't do anything as bad
as The Room, as Annihilation, and a bunch of other ones. Pretty bad.
But Annihilation's a very good
example. Top 5 worst movie.
Still watch it though. It's still funny.
Yes. Definitely watch it. It is an experience. But anyway, we are taking up a lot of time.
But yeah, so just let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll try and get back to as many people as we can, and we'll see you next time.
Later.